Bills, Chiefs, round 8 of Mahomes versus Allen. We're getting ready for it today on the Locked On Podcast Network.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into this crossover Thursday episode of both Locked On Bills and Locked On Chiefs. As always, we want to give you a big thank you for making us your first listen every day. We're a proud member of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And this crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the app, use code Locked On NFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. I'm Joe Marino, the host of Locked On Bills, joined by both Chris Clark and Ryan Tracy, the hosts of Locked On Chiefs. We're here to get you ready for a big one. Week 11, the Kansas City Chiefs travel to Orchard Park to face the Buffalo Bills. The spotlight game for CBS. I know the eyes of the nation will be on this one. We're going to get into the path to victory for both sides. We're going to talk Bills storylines, but we start by focusing in on the Kansas City Chiefs. And I have a very simple question for you guys. And this is a hyped up game. We know it is. Everyone's interested in this one. It feels really important for the Bills based on having three playoff losses to Kansas City since 2020, despite some regular season success against the Kansas City Chiefs. The Bills winning the last three, all three in Arrowhead. How important is this for the 9-0 Kansas City Chiefs?
I look at this game, and I don't think it's as important as it would have been if they would have lost to the Broncos, because right now you are in the catbird seat for the number one seed. Even if you lose to the Bills, you're still in the catbird seat for the number one seed. I really look at it that way. Don't get me wrong. There are people that, and I want them to beat the Bills, so I want to be clear on that. But I don't think it's as important as it could be if they would have lost to the Broncos, just mainly for the number one seed, because I really do think that they're going to need that bye after having a bye so early in the year. I think that's the bigger thing, really, other than chasing, an undefeated season, which I don't think the team is really going to be chasing after. I don't think Andy Reid wants to chase after. I expect that if they get close to having an undefeated season and get to week 16, 17, 18, that Reid's still going to sit starters and, maybe consider just taking the loss if they have the number one seed locked up.
Yeah, I mean, a win for the Chiefs gives them a head-to-head over Baltimore, gives them a head-to-head over Buffalo. They get their chance against Houston, who I don't think is in the conversation at all, and they get their chance against Pittsburgh later on in the season. So Chiefs very much controlling their own destiny. And you got to the talking point I thought you would there about the Week 6 bye. That's very early for, most of the teams that go on to win the Super Bowl. They typically correlate to later season byes. So that would be big for Kansas City, although I think they're probably, even if they lose this game, I think they're probably going to be okay when it comes to getting that number one seed, given that they already have a 2-game lead on the Bills. And, the Bills have some tough dates coming up. They have the Lions and the Rams on the road. You got the Niners coming up. So there's some challenging games as well. Now, one thing I want to get into now is Patrick Mahomes. You guys heard of this guy, the quarterback of the Chiefs? He's pretty good. How have you seen him evolve this season? I think with all of the top quarterbacks, there's always a bit of an evolution as things change around them. And with Patrick Mahomes, I think that the transition in the weapons, not only from last year, but from what they thought it was going to be at the beginning of the year, the numbers are pretty unique for Patrick Mahomes based on the standard that he's given us. How have you seen Patrick Mahomes adjust and evolve this year?
Well, I think you said it completely correct. I mean, it's an evolution, and it's continuing to evolve week to week. And I think the addition of DeAndre Hopkins has been big over the past couple of weeks. I think that he has not only brought his presence to the offense, but he's helped Travis Kelce bring his presence back to the offense as well, which has been big. But you go back and look at the start of the season, they expected Hollywood Brown to have a huge piece of this offense. He was supposed to be a huge contributor to this offense. They had a lot of things planned for him during training camp and getting ready in the offense, and then all of a sudden he's not even going to play this season. And then you lose Rashee Rice in week 4. Those are two losses that have just really hampered this offense and hampered what they're able to do. You add a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, he comes in, shows that he has the ability to be, man and zone at different times, helps Travis Kelce kind of get back to being more of what we are used to Travis Kelce doing. And then this week, it looks like you're going to add a guy in Juju Smith-Schuster back who isn't great against man defenses, but he can run some of the schemes that they want to beat with man defense, but he's also great against zone defenses. I think that's really going to help when you start looking at the evolution of Mahomes, who I do think is struggling this season, and it's mainly due to not trusting his offensive line, mainly on the left side. And I do think that will continue probably this week, and maybe they can get it figured out over the next couple of weeks headed into the playoffs. But I think that's the big thing that is causing issues right now.
I have to sneak in this question that I didn't tell you I was going to sneak in, but after all the drama that was the Bills trading with the Chiefs so that Kansas City can come up and get Xavier Worthy, what's the heat here? What are you seeing from Xavier Worthy and what he's shown to this point and maybe where you think it's going to go?
I'm excited about it. I think that he takes the top off the defense, and he is helping. He's got 5 touchdowns on the season. It's not exactly what you want necessarily. It hasn't been as great as you would want it to be. But the thought was he was going to be at best, maybe 3rd or 4th option this year, because you were expecting Brown and Rice and Kelsey to be the top 3 guys. So you weren't expecting to shove him into a role where he has to be the number 1 guy or the number 2 guy. Now he's got to play in that to an extent before they brought in Hopkins. So I think that he is evolving as the year goes on. But the bigger thing, and Mahomes said this himself, if he hits Worthy on some of those deep plays, we're not asking questions about the Chiefs' offense anymore. It's Mahomes has missed him. He has to hit those plays, and if he does, it completely changes how they play this game.
Yeah, the deep ball, the frequency of deep ball for Mahomes this year is very, very low, right? That's been a trend of late, and it's not necessarily been a bad thing. I think it's led to more efficient offense, and obviously they've won the last 2 Super Bowls, so no harm really there. But that explosive element was something that if it comes and it clicks, and I'm sure it will, that's going to make the Chiefs even more dangerous. So I had to sneak that in. And the Bills are happy with Keon Coleman. Imagine that, folks, a world where both teams could be happy with the trade. I know that's a little too nuanced, perhaps, for most people to accept. I want to ask you about this rushing offense. The Chiefs have been without Isaiah Pacheco for all but 2 games, but the rushing efficiency has been really, really high. They're number 4 in success rate. They're number 32 in stuff rate. That's very good. You want to be 32 in stuff rate. And number 6 in EPA per rush. Andy Reid, not known for the run game. How is he mixing it in this season, and where do you think that efficiency comes from? Is it as simple as saying, yeah, they got the best interior trio of offensive linemen in the league?
It certainly doesn't hurt. You got to have that. These guys are carrying the tackles at this point, right? They're giving them an anchor to try to grow into. But it's also the fact that when Pacheco gets hurt, you get to go to someone else that has the experience, not only in the NFL, but in this offense, understands where the little keys are in the run game to see what he can get through and what he can't. They tried to run Carson Steele, an undrafted rookie who I do think has some potential, but it's really the acquisition and pull him off the couch. I don't know what you had to do it, but put the drink down, get up, Kareem, because it's time to get back to work. And it was like that. I don't know that there's been another transition where a guy that's out of the league completely, due to injury or otherwise, just walks back in and picks up where he left off. And that certainly is the Cinderella story here.
Yeah, I thought he was cooked. Guys. He came to Kansas City, and all of a sudden he seems to be Kareem Hunt to the way, sort of the way we saw him earlier in his career. Want to sneak in one more here. The Chiefs defense, once again, outstanding. Despite a lot of transition this offseason, who's stepping up for this Chiefs defense? Like, I know we know about Chris Jones and George Karlaftis, but who are some of the new names that are stepping up here? And if there's any aspects to this defense where it's vulnerable, I'd like to hear about that.
The big one is Trent McDuffie, who really stepped out of the shadow of L'Jarius Sneed, who has then obviously moved on. And for the most part, it's been a pretty good transition. Are there a few more ups and downs? Yeah, probably. You got to remember he's a pretty young player, but he is now taking over CB1. He's somebody that can rally around the rest of the group that is still very, very young. They've had a rotation, lost Jalen Watson, another member of that Fab Five that was drafted at the same time, along with Brian Cook and Trent McDuffie, who are the starters. Najee Johnson had a nice game last week, same age, right? Rookie Chris Rowland-Wallace is starting to make some contributions. Didn't have a whole lot of fanfare, earned his way onto the roster and earned playing time against the injury. He's starting to make a contribution. I think you're seeing more just starting last week from Jaden Hicks as well. So the secondary is super young, and they're starting to come together. Up front, they're relying on Mike Dana to help out Chris Jones, and they're just going through a battery of tests. Felix Anudike-Uzomah was probably overdrafted. We didn't have a grade on him that really reflected that, but that's the situation they're in. We knew he was going to be a project. it's starting to come together for him. Using his length and his get off, it's starting to feel more like he's ready to contribute, maybe even a little bit more inside. So there's an extra bonus that you didn't really see coming. And I think last week was exemplary of the guy that really has stepped up his game and shown more than just potential athleticism. It's Leo Chenal doing a little bit of everything, from the off-ball spot, from the pass rush spot. He's able to really, I think, enforce his will and give Spags another chess piece to move around the board.
Ryan, if you're going to attack this Chiefs defense, who are you going after? Where's the chink in the armor? Come on now, there's got to be something.
I'm running drags and wheels on the linebackers and see if you can get somebody loose. That said, watch out for them safeties, okay?
Right. I hear you. Well, the Bills got some of that in the bag. We'll see if they can unload it here on Sunday afternoon. All right, we're going to shift gears on the other side of it, talk about the Bills' top storylines. Folks, be sure to stick with us. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including Constitution 101, Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Rise and Fall of the Roman Republic, and more. Plus, all of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced so that you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Maybe you want to get in on some of the action for this Bills-Chiefs game. You can get Patrick Mahomes with points. The Chiefs, the underdogs in this game. So that's never a bad idea. I like to do that from time to time. Not typically when the Bills are involved, but maybe that's enticing for you. Check it out, folks. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports book of the NFL. All right, gentlemen, your turn. What can I answer for you about the Buffalo Bills?
The big thing that's sticking out to me when you look at this team and you look at how they played so far is they have basically dominated just about everybody they've played when they're winning. Most of their wins have been very convincing, but it's the losses that really stick out to me. What did you see in that Buffalo game that really stuck out to you, and what would you attack if you were trying to attack this Bills team?
You're for the Bills' 2 losses against the Ravens and Texans. That'd be the 2 that they lost. I think you had a very common theme between both of those games. It was, Josh Allen kind of big play hunting, getting away from being efficient with the football, which he did early in the season and he's done since. Really just kind of taking profits, keeping things on schedule, where if there are times where you feel like Josh Allen wants to go out and try to show the world that he's that guy, and it can be too much at times. And I thought that happened against Baltimore. That happened against Houston, where he kind of went big play hunting and there just wasn't enough efficiency to the offense. And again, I think you have a 10-game sample size where 8 games he didn't do that and 2 he did. And it feels like those lessons have been learned. But when Josh Allen's just playing within structure, putting on the cape when necessary, that's when he's at his best. And I think he got away from that against Baltimore and Houston.
I'm going to go a different direction, but to follow up on that, whether it's golf or somewhere else, I think that happens with Patrick as well. These 2 guys, I think, force each other out of their efficient, let's be smart kind of play and try to get to the one-upsmanship. How, if you are talking to Josh, how do you get him to ignore that and try to just do you and you're going to be fine?
What's interesting is for as much as I agree with you, I do feel like Josh has done a good job of threading that needle against Kansas City. Looking at the history, you look at the last 3 in the regular season, the last 2 in the postseason. It hadn't been a Josh Allen thing, man. Josh Allen has been, obviously the 3 wins in the regular season speak for themselves, but the Bills didn't lose 2 games in the postseason because Josh Allen didn't do his part. He walked off the field 13 seconds as a winner, right? The defense let him down. And you look at the most recent playoff loss in Buffalo, I think it was the defense as well. They couldn't get stops. Obviously, they were very banged up at all three levels, but ultimately couldn't get stops, couldn't get enough impact from their defensive line. So I think Josh needs to do what he's done against Kansas City. I think he's probably been one of the better performing quarterbacks against this defense. I think where the real story is, what do the Bills have on defense against this Chiefs offense?
And that is exactly actually where I was wanting to go. When you look at this game and you look at how the Chiefs offense has been playing and how the Bills defense has been playing, what is it that you expect for this Bills defense to do to try to attack this Chiefs offense and slow them down so they can't put up the points to keep pace with Josh Allen and the Bills offense?
Yeah, I don't think there's an easy answer to that. I think the Chiefs offense has an efficiency to it, right? They're really good on third downs. They're really efficient running the football. They have the most drives in the NFL of 10 plays or more. The Chiefs offense very much does the thing that the Bills dare offenses to do. It's, hey, we're not going to give you explosive plays. And if you're going to score, you're going to string play after play after play and not make a mistake. And eventually you can get close enough to score points. Well, guess who's good at doing that? The Chiefs. So that's kind of the concerning component here. And I think that's why this game for the Bills on defense, it comes down to their defensive line. What type of impact can they make? I think that obviously the interior is going to be tough to do anything against that middle three of Tooney and Smith and Humphrey, but can they get some wins on the edge against these tackles? I think that's going to be really important. I think Kansas City has schemed around deficiency at offensive tackle for a couple of years now, so it's nothing new for them, but can the Bills get enough disruption that's going to force Kansas City into some negative plays? And even when you get them into negative plays, we know Kansas City can get out of it. Can you tighten the screws on third down? I think it's really going to come down to how disruptive you can be. And when you have them on the ropes, you can't let them off the hook by allowing them to convert a third and long.
That's probably the biggest thing that keeps me up at night before this ball game. And if you are helping set the tone here, we've seen Epinesa make plays. We've seen a one-handed stab from Russo. Like, we know Von Miller, for the ages, right? How do they approach? What's the best way for the Bills to attack the left tackle spot? Because they can play around with Taylor, but we know what you have to do here, right? So what should we expect to have to counter from the Bills?
Well, I think the Bills will certainly want to try to use their edge rushers to their advantage, and Greg Rousseau and Epinesa, who have both had good games against Kansas City, and of course Von Miller, at least when he's been healthy, he's been able to help the Bills against Kansas City. Obviously, the game 2 years after the 13 seconds, I guess 2022, Von Miller with the big pressure that led to the Taron Johnson interception to kind of seal that game. There's been moments, but I think with Patrick Mahomes, you have to cage rush him, right? It's not if you only pressure from one side, it really doesn't matter. I think he probably likes that. It gives him escape outlets. So I think you have to have a very coordinated, disciplined cage rush that's going to take away that ability that he has, that elite pocket movement skill. And then combining that with vision and instincts to see the field and find completions. It's a difficult situation. So the Bills have compression style rushers, and I think they have to, more so than try to just dust the tackles, you got to have a controlled compression style rush to try to keep Mahomes in the pocket the best you can.
I have to ask a bonus question, Joe. How do you feel about Tyler Bass in this game? And the reason I ask it, you know exactly why I ask it. It's been something that has caused them issues in the past with him kicking and missing a field goal in the playoffs last year and just in big moments. How are you feeling about him so far this season? I know he had a huge kick a couple weeks ago to win the game.
Yeah, the 61-yarder to beat Miami. It feels like that's a turning point. But the reality is, I mean, if you go through the larger sample size, really since about mid-season last year, there's been a lot of inconsistency. So since he, the last couple of games, he's been very good. He made from 61. I think he's made 4 from beyond 40. He's been perfect the last couple of games. But yeah, I think there's a mental side to this, right? That kick against Kansas City would have invited the opportunity for Patrick Mahomes to have a game-winning drive. So who knows what happens from that point forward, but at least you extend the game, right? At least you make them go do it, which is interesting. So yeah, I think there's probably a mental side of that. But you'd like to think from a Bills perspective that was a big turning point for him against Miami a few weeks ago. And I mean, Tyler Bass is a paid kicker, right? He's not like a rookie. He's earned an extension. There's a reason for that. There's a proof of concept here. There's a sample size of him being a very good kicker for the Bills. But he certainly had some rough patches along the way. It feels like he's turned the corner, but yeah, I think there's probably nerves every time that he steps out there, not only from him, but anybody watching, that it's going to go through. So it's a worthwhile talking point, but for Tyler Bass, you certainly hope that he turned the corner a few weeks ago, and from not only that kick, but the results since then have been really good. All right, folks, on the other side of it, there's a path for each of these teams to win the game. We'll tell you what we think that is. Be sure to stick with us. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action on fantasy sports. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. I personally love that Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get money in as quick as 15 minutes. Plus, Prize Picks now offers Venmo for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into your account this season. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. I'm Joe Marino, host of Locked On Bills, joined by Chris Clark and Ryan Tracy of Locked On Chiefs, getting you ready for Week 11 Bills Chiefs, the 9-0 Kansas City Chiefs coming to Buffalo to face the 8-2 Buffalo Bills. Gentlemen, if the Kansas City Chiefs are going to snap the Bills' 3-game regular season win streak against the Kansas City Chiefs, which has not mattered an ounce in the playoffs, what's got to go right for Kansas City in this one?
For me, they have to continue to take care of the ball. Patrick Mahomes has been a lot better the past couple of weeks taking care of the ball. If he doesn't turn the ball over, it helps their chances. And you mentioned this earlier, and this is one of the big things in this game. The Chiefs lead the league or are very high in the league at 10-plus play drives. That wears a defense down. That wears a team down. And if they can continue to take care of the ball and have those type of sustained drives, Kansas City should be able to put themselves in the driver's seat to win this game.
I think that's a good talking point. The Bills very good at taking away the football. 18% of drives against the Bills defense end in a takeaway. The Bills have had multiple takeaways in all but 3 games this year. They've had a takeaway in every game. They've had a takeaway in 12 straight dating back to last season. So obviously I think that's going to be a big part of the equation here. And it's part of mine as well. I have 3 things written down for the Bills to have success and win this game. And taking care of the football matters quite a bit. And I think when you go back to the last 3 meetings between these two teams, the 3 meetings since 13 seconds where, obviously the fireworks happened at the end of that game, these hadn't been high-scoring affairs, guys. The highest point total scored by any team over the last 3 has been 27. These have typically been low 20s games, 20-17, 20-23, 24-20 type games. And so you got to make sure that every drive ends in a kick, either a punt, a field goal, or an extra point. You can't be giving away possessions. They matter so much in these types of games. And so, yeah, I think for the Bills, I'll match you. I'll say of equal importance for them to take care of the football. They've done well with that. The Bills have only given the ball away 6 times this year. And I guess 4 of those have come in the last 3 games. So that's picked up a little bit on, honestly, some goofy interceptions. So that taking care of the football, big one for both sides here.
Goofy's a great way to put it. So I know how I would go in and attack this particular team, but if we're doing the post-game show, Joe, and we're dealing with the Chiefs did break that snap, how would you break it down? What did they do to beat the Bills this time that maybe they haven't done in the past?
What did Kansas City do to beat the Bills? I mean, Kansas City, I don't, that's the thing about Kansas City. They're not game script dependent. They can win games all kinds of different ways, whatever it takes, right? They did great study and figured out how to block a kick at the end of the game to win. They need Patrick Mahomes to go have a game-winning drive. He's done that 4 times this year. They need to stop on defense. They can get it. So I think that's the beauty of a team like Kansas City. And I think other top teams like I would say Buffalo as well, they're not game script dependent. It doesn't have to go a certain way. You look at a team like Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh's a good football team, but it has to go a certain way for them to win. There's a script. They're game script dependent. I don't think either of these teams are game script dependent. I think that they can find ways to win games no matter what. And I think obviously the Chiefs are the greatest example of that in the NFL, not only this year, but really since 2018.
When I look at this game, you talk about how these have been low scoring games. Kansas City, I think, has something like over 20 games where they haven't allowed more than 24 points, I think, or 27 points. So I do think that continues in this game. So to me, it's, can you get Allen into third down situations where you can actually rush the passer? I'm not talking third and shorts. I'm talking, keep him in, third 5, third 6, and beyond that. Because if you can actually get after the quarterback and force him to get into those third down scenarios, it takes away the legs a little bit. I understand it's not going to take him away completely, but at least it takes it away a little bit easier than, a 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 3 where he doesn't have to do much with his legs to go get that first down.
Yeah, I think Josh Allen's legs are going to matter in this one. He's choosy these days with when he's going to run. And he said on the McAfee show last week ahead of the Colts game that his body was feeling pretty good. And you saw him, he took off a little bit against the Colts. I think this is a game where you will see Josh weaponize his legs, especially if the Bills are going to be shorthanded with their skill players. No Keon Coleman, who has been the team's leading receiver this year. No Dalton Kincaid, potentially, right? He had a knee injury against the Colts and he didn't practice on Wednesday, which was a walkthrough. I don't know how that's going to go. And then Amari Cooper, who's got a wrist deal, even if he plays, it's going to have some type of brace on his hand. He caught passes out of the jugs machine on Wednesday, which is an encouraging sign. But, if they're going to be shorthanded with missing more than one of those guys, I think you see Josh Allen weaponize his legs a decent amount in this football game, of course, with the eyes of the nation watching.
I think that's one of my keys for the Chiefs to be victorious is they got to corral not just him, but James Cook as well. And for me, I would even go to the point, given the weapons that aren't there, is prioritizing the run first and really selling out, especially early in the ball game, to make sure that those two cannot hurt you. I'm talking overload blitzes. I'm talking all kinds of disguise. Spags going into the bag of tricks to try to make sure you can't get momentum. I think that's what kills the Chiefs against the Bills is when you let Josh in particular get momentum. Is there something else I'm missing? What's the hidden magic that we got to be on the lookout for?
I mean, the Bills have become a pretty balanced offense. They run the ball very successfully. Their zone rushing offense has really taken off lately, and that's allowed them to kind of work in some of the efficiency to the passing game. I think an X factor for me is going to be the down the field passing for Buffalo is, what type of appetite do they have for it, and is it successful? And it's trended well over the last 5 games after a really bad start. And so what type of opportunities are there down the field to maybe create some explosives? And then, defensively, like to me, all this talk about Mahomes, Allen, to me, how is the Bills defensive line going to show up? That's what it's going to come down to. Can they be disruptive enough? Can they win organically to create pressure and affect Patrick Mahomes? That's what it comes down to. I think that's the biggest storyline for me. So my 3 keys for the Bills: effective cage rush on Patrick Mahomes, take care of the football, and win in the red zone. This is one of those games where you get chances to score touchdowns. You got to score touchdowns. You get chances to hold them to field goals. You better hold them to field goals. I think the team that wins in the red zone, that takes care of the football and has the most disruption with their defensive line, wins this football game.
Can't argue there. I think the defensive line disruption is going to be huge in this game, and Kansas City has struggled to get after the passer the past couple of weeks. Possibly with the Bills missing the right tackle, that could help Kansas City a little bit, but I do think that Chris Jones and Tershawn Morton have to be absolutely disruptive, and George Karlaftis needs to be helping as well. So I do think if they can get pressure on Josh Allen, that's going to help, because you do not want to be blitzing Josh Allen, much like you guys don't want to be blitzing Patrick Mahomes to try to get pressure. That does not work out well for the defense usually.
Well, gentlemen, the game will be played on Sunday afternoon, and we'll get everyone ready for it. We'll react to it, of course. Locked On Bills, Locked On Chiefs. Follow both podcasts before and after the game to get yourself the perspective on both sides of the equation. And folks, I got a feeling we're going to be doing this again in January. So until then, I'm Joe Marino. Big shout out to Chris Clark and Ryan Tracy for joining me. As always, we kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch up with you again real soon.